Hey YouTube, welcome to a theory video today. And we're going to do Kant's moral philosophy. This will be interesting. Oh, there's so much to read here. Okay, so let's get started then. Remember, I'll leave the link down in the description below. Okay. Immanuel Kant, 1724 to 1804, argued that moral requirements are based on a standard of rationality he dubbed the categorical imperative. Immortality thus involves a violation of the CIA and is thereby irrational. Other philosophers, such as Locke and Hobbes, have also argued that moral requirements are based on standards of rationality. However, these standards were either desire-based, instrumental principles of rationality, or based on sui generis, rational intuitions. Kant agreed with many of his predecessors that analyzed the practical reason will reveal only the requirement that rational agents must conform to instrumental principles. Yet he argued that conformity to the CIA, a non-instrumental principle, and hence to the moral requirements themselves, can nevertheless be shown to be essential to rational agency. This argument was based on his striking doctrine that a rational will must be regarded as autonomous, or free in the sense of being the author of the law that binds it. The fundamental principle of morality, the CIA, is none other than the law of the autonomous will. Thus, at the heart of Kant's moral philosophy is a conception of reason whose reach in practical affairs goes well beyond that of a human slave to the passions. Moreover, it is the presence of this self-governing reason in each person that Kant's thoughts offer decisive grounds for reviewing each as possessed of equal worth and deserving of equal respect. Kant's most influential positions are found in the groundwork of the metaphysics of morals, but he develops enriched and in some cases modified views in later works, such as the Critique of Practical Reason, the Metaphysics of Morals, Anthropology from a Pragmatic Point of View, and Religion within the boundaries of mere reason. I will focus on the foundation doctrines of the groundwork, even though in recent years some scholars have become dissatisfied with the standard approach to Kant's views and have turned their attention to later works. Number 1. This will be entertaining. And I lost the page. Oh no! Aims of methods and moral philosophy. The most basic aim of moral philosophy, and also of the groundwork, is, in Kant's view, to seek out the foundational principle of metaphysics of morals. Kant pursues this project through the first 2 chapters of the groundwork. He proceeds by analyzing and elucidating common sense ideas about morality. The point of the first project is to come up with a precise statement of the principle or principles on which all of our ordinary moral judgments are based. The judgments in question are supposed to be those by normal, sane, adult human being who would accept. Nowadays, however, many would regard Kant as being overly optimistic about the depth and extent of moral agreement. But perhaps he is best thought of as drawing on a moral viewpoint that is widely shared and which contains some general judgments that are deeply held. In any case, he does not appear to take himself to be primarily addressing a genuine, more skeptical such as those who often populate the works of moral philosophers, that is, someone who needs a reason to act morally, and whose moral behavior hinges on rational proof that philosophers might try to give. For instance, when, in the third and final chapter of the groundwork, Kant takes up his second fundamental aim, to establish the foundational moral principle as a demand of each person's own rational will, his conclusion falls short of answering those who want a proof that we really are bound by moral requirements. He rests this second project on the position that we, or at least creatures with rational wills, possess autonomy. The argument of his second project does not often appear to try to reach out in a metaphysical fact about our wills. This has led some readers to the conclusion that he is, after all, trying to justify moral requirements by appealing to a fact, or autonomy, that even a moral skeptic would have to recognize. However, the most offensive elements of his argument to establish the fundamental principle of morality rest on a claim that will be unlikely to impress a true skeptic, that the autonomy of our wills is a presupposition of any practical point of view recognizable as such by us. Now, I need to go look at things real quick. It goes up to 12. How much time have I done? Okay, so I'll get up to. If I did 3, it'd be 4 parts. I'll do 3. I'll do this in parts. Oof. Yeah, I'll definitely do this in parts. Right. Okay. Although these are two fundamental aims of moral philosophy, they are not, in Kant's view, the only aims. Moral philosophy addresses the question, what ought I to do? And an answer to that question requires much more than delivering the fundamental principle of morality. We also need some account, based on this principle, of the nature and extent of our various ethical obligations. To this end, Kant employs his findings from the groundwork in the metaphysics of morals and offers a categorization of our basic ethical obligations to ourselves and others. Moral philosophy should also characterize and explain the demands that morality makes on human psychology and forms of human social interaction. These topics, among others, are addressed in central chapters of the second Critic and again in the Metaphysics of Morals, and are perhaps given a sustained treatment of anthropology from a pragmatic point of view. Further, a satisfying answer to the question of what one ought to do would have to take into account any political and religious requirements there are. Each of these requirements turn out to be, indirectly at least, also ethical obligations for Kant, and are discussed in the Metaphysics of Morals and in Religion. Finally, moral philosophy should say something about the ultimate end of human endeavor, the highest good, and its relationship to the moral life. In the Critique of Practical Reason, Kant argued that his highest good for humanity is complete moral virtue, together with complete happiness, the former being the condition of our deserving the latter. Unfortunately, Kant voted virtue does not ensure well-being and may even conflict with it. Further, there is no real possibility of moral perfection in this life, and indeed few of us fully deserve the happiness we are lucky enough to enjoy. Reason cannot prove or disprove the existence of divine providence, nor the immortality of the soul, which seem necessary to rectify these things. Nevertheless, Kant argued an unlimited amount of time to perfect ourselves, and commensurate achievement of well-being are postulates required by reason when employed with moral matters. Throughout his moral works, Kant returns time and again to the question of the method moral philosophy should employ when pursuing these aims. A basic theme of these discussions is that the fundamental philosophical issues must be addressed a priori, that is, without drawing on observations of human beings and their behavior. Once we seek out and establish the fundamental principle of morality a priori, then we may consult facts drawn from experience in order to determine how best to apply this principle to human beings and generate particular conclusions about how we ought to act. Kant's insistence on a priori method to seek out and establish fundamental moral principles, however, does not always appear to be matched by his own practice. The groundwork, for instance, makes repeated appeals to empirical facts, that our wills are determined by practical principles, that various motivations are variable in producing right actions, and so on. Later ethical works rely even more heavily on empirical generalizations. Kant did not take himself to be employing such generalizations and seeking out and establishing the easy to tell whether Kant's argument gain or plausibility only by relying on ideas established by observations of human beings and the world they inhabit. Excuse me. Just gotta make sure it's still recording here. Okay. In one sense, it might seem obvious why Kant insists on a priori method. A metaphysics of morals, would be, more or less, an account of the nature and structure of moral reality. In effect, a categorization of duties and values. Such project would address such questions as: what is a duty? What kinds of duties are there? What is the good? What kinds of goods are there? And so on. These appear to be metaphysical questions. Any principle used to provide such categorizations appear to be a principle of metaphysics, and metaphysical principles are always sought out and established by a priori method. Perhaps something like this was behind Kant's thinking. However, the considerations he offers for a priori method do not all obviously draw on this sort of rationale. The following are three considerations favoring a priori methods that he emphasizes repeatedly. The first is that, as Kant and others have conceived of it, ethics initially requires an analysis of our moral concepts. We must understand the concepts of goodwill, obligation, duty, and so on, as well as their logical relationships to one another, before we can determine whether our use of these concepts is justified. Given the analysis of concepts is in a priori matter, to the degree that ethics consists of such an analysis, ethics as a priori as well. Of course, even were we to agree with Kant that ethics should begin with analysis, and that analysis is, or should be, an entirely a priori undertaking, this would not explain why all the fundamental questions of moral philosophy must be pursued a priori. A priori. Indeed, the most important project is to show that we, as rational agents, are justified in holding ourselves to the standard enshrined in the CI. If this project must also be carried out by a priori, it cannot be because it is an analytical project. Conformity to moral requirements it is not itself contained in the concept of rational agency. Nor is there any contradiction in asserting that a fully rational agent can be immoral. Yet, Kant argued, no experience can tell us whether any will, including our own, conforms to the CI either. What counts regarding to such conformity is not the actions one sees, but their inner principles, which one does not see. 407. Indeed, because of the dismissal record of human behavior, the more we experience it, the less confidence we have that will ever conform to moral norms. Since observation cannot establish the necessary conformity of rational wills in CIA, Kant regards the claim that they do conform as an example of a priori synthetic claim, an a priori claim that is not analytical or conceptual, yet whose justification cannot rely on observation. This is the second reason Kant held fundamental issues in ethics must be addressed with an a priori method. The ultimate subject matter of ethics is the matter and the content of the principles that necessarily determine a rational will. Fundamental issues is moral philosophy also must settle a priori because of the nature of moral requirements themselves, or so Kant thought. This is the third reason for an a priori method, and it appears to have been of great importance to Kant. Moral requirements represent themselves as being absolutely necessary, but an a posteriori method seems ill-suited to discovering and establishing what we must do. Surely it will tell us what we actually do. So an a posteriori method of seeking out and establishing the principle that generates such requirements will not support the presentation of moral oughts as necessities. Kant argued that empirical observations could only deliver conclusions about, for instance, the relative advantages, eyes of others. Such findings clearly would not support the absolute necessity of moral requirements. To appeal to a posteriori considerations would thus result in a tainted conception of moral requirements. It would view them as demands for which compliance is not absolutely necessary, but rather not necessary only if additional considerations show it to be advantageous, optimific, or some other way felicitous. Thus Kant argued that if moral philosophy is to guard against undermining the absolute necessity of obligation in its analysis in defense of moral thought, it must be carried out entirely a priori. And that's all I have. That's it for today's episode. I will continue this tomorrow. This will be a theory that will be done in parts, as there are multiple bits of this theory. I hope you guys are learning how much, and hope you guys enjoyed. For those of you who are into this stuff, I am, but hey, that's just me. Excuse me. If there's any other theories you'd like to, sorry, cleaning something here. If there's any other theories you'd like to see me learn about or hear about, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll get to those after I finish this theory. I'll leave the link to this theory down in the description, so if you'd like to read ahead, you may. Please subscribe to my channel for some awesome song covers, let's plays, and also check out some other theories and or top 10s that I have done. And I will see you tomorrow. See ya.